Well, Ghana's food and beverage industry has been on the receiving end of recent power fluctuations as calls for a power schedule from the Ghana Grid Company intensify. Samuel Agre is Executive Secretary of the Food and Beverage Association, and he joins us via Zoom for a discussion on this matter. We're so grateful that he joined us. First of all, we've been experiencing erratic power supply since somewhere last month. Narrate to us the extent of damage that this development has had or continues to have on the food and beverage industries.
Well, thank you. Good evening. What I would say is that since government is not able to plan the outages, the beverage industries are the receiving end. Let me say generally, the industries receiving end, and this will add up to giving up the cost in terms of production, and then also not meeting our production capacity as time goes on.
Interesting. So speaking about the cost and not meeting production capacity, definitely this could spell doom for your profit margins and could emanate in a trickle-down effect of job losses, and the list goes on and on. Paint towards the picture of the dire effects that this could have on the value chain of businesses along the food and beverage industry.
Well, when we consider what is happening domestically, the cost of electricity itself is very expensive, if I should say so. And then looking at the timelines that is given by the GRICO, we are at a loss because what they're supposed to have done was to do whatever infrastructure they wanted to expand throughout the country, and then gradually bring on board the consumers. Unfortunately, what they are doing is rather mix the two together. And by doing so, we are not able to get the industries to benefit directly from what they are doing. If you look at the structure as it is, our industries are not in an enclave, and therefore they could plan towards how to preserve energy for them to be able to have a continuous production without interruption. But as it is, the industries is scattered within the country, and therefore, wherever you find yourself and what is being done, what it means is that you will then have to deploy an extra energy by switching on generators to ensure that you stay abreast with what is happening, and then your production line goes on. If you are a company that is not able to afford the facility of a generator, then what it means is that you have to wait for GRIDCO to come online before you are able to produce. But if they're able to give us a systematic lineup as to how they are going to schedule the outages, we will be able to plan, and then production will go on without interruption. But unfortunately, you will be there and then the power goes off, and you don't know when it's coming on. So we are at the mercy of GRIDCO and the ECG, as it is. But unless they do something drastically about this, industry is going to suffer, even though the prices of electricity itself is going to go up. And this is what we are not expecting, that this year, with the suffering that we have had over the months and the year past, we are going to have a reduction or a compensation, as it were. But not to say, but rather they are going to increase the power. And by doing so, GRICO itself is also shutting down intermittently, and is going to affect us in all the way down to the production lines.
So what then could be the trickle-down effects? Are we going to see the prospects of prices of your products having to shoot up? Are we going to see effects of workers having to be furloughed or laid off? What exactly is the picture that you're trying to paint to us?
Well, we have not gotten to the point where workers will be laid off and then come on board. Already we are facing challenges as the COVID inception came in. And therefore, we expected that government will give us some relief. Unfortunately, the relief that is coming, you have to meet certain criteria before you are able to access the fund. Then if you look at the trend of itself, the electricity itself not being stable as we have it now, because most of the companies have a backup. That is, they are able to log on or switch on when the ECG goes off. But unfortunately, we are looking at the cost as in terms of operation. But if the ECG will give us some alleviation in this area, we'll be happy, because this is what government itself, we have been discussing with government over some time, that they will reduce tariffs for industry, and then domestic consumption will be at par. Because looking at it for now, we are saying that production itself for electricity is very expensive in this country. And therefore, most of the companies, those who are operating outside Ghana, if you compare electricity output, then of course you will say that elsewhere is more cheaper than having it in Ghana. And in Ghana, industry itself is not having its, let me say, the easy way approach. It's very expensive if it comes to electricity. But nevertheless, I wouldn't say that we are going to lay off staff as it is now. We will study the trend as it goes. If perhaps what will happen at worst is to suspend some of the production lines and then get into the stable consumption of it, so that we'll be able to run alongside with the ECG until they come on board.
All
but
right.
as it is now, we haven't gotten any indications that workers will be laid off because of the electricity parting. We will study the situation as it is, and therefore we will know as time goes on whether to consider laying off some staff until power becomes stable.
But what about transferring the cost involved, cost of production of which you stated could increase to consumers?
Well, I will say that for now, consumers will have some relief, because the cost of electricity itself hasn't come up, though we are anticipating that definitely they are going to increase the cost of electricity. What we are seeing now, prices will be stable, even though there will be a marginal increase because of the terrains that is on the ground. But if you consider electricity, until the prices come up, we won't be able to increase prices as it were. But marginally, some of the products have seen a marginal increase over the period in the first quarter. And we'll wait and see how electricity comes on board. And then we'll be able to plan whether to give consumers some hike of prices.
Samuel Aguri, so grateful that you joined us. He's the Executive Secretary of the Food and Beverage Association. Well, we do know, you just heard there, the impacts that the erratic power supply is having on the food and beverage industry.